I'm Toby Weed, Public Information Officer for Great Basin Complex Incident Management Team 3. Hi, can you hear me? All right. Well, welcome. This is our 5th community meeting, Great Basin Team 3. We want to welcome you. We'll start with a few stats. The Middle Fork Complex is now 56,816 acres. It's 14% completed, and there's 934 people working on the fire. We have a great lineup for this evening, and we're going to ask that you please hold your questions until the end of the meeting. We'll start off with our incident meteorologist, and then we'll hear from our fire behavior analyst. Then we'll go ahead and get a situation update from our operations section chief. And after this, we'll get an update from the operations in the Wapiti Fire area. Then we'll have a message from our agency administrator. And finally, we'll have closing comments from our incident commander, Brett Waters. We'll go ahead and start off.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Colin McKellar, Incident Meteorologist. I've seen a few of you around already for a while, and if you don't know what an incident meteorologist does, we come to these fires to provide hyper-focused forecast just for this fire. That said, today we're looking at a pretty convective day. There is a red flag warning out, not just for our fire, but from the Boise, Idaho office for pretty much all of southern Idaho. And that is for lightning and these thunderstorms that you see outside right now on dry fuels. So that goes through tonight, and after that, we'll get through this next 6 to 12 hours of convective weather. With that, we are expecting those gusty outflow winds, and these are what we call in fire weather critical winds, because these can dominate the fire environment, posing huge risks to those on the fire line and our firefighters. After this, and we get through tonight and these thunderstorms, we'll head into Tuesday. Tuesday, we are looking as a trough moves through the area of central Idaho. With that, we will see some wraparound showers tomorrow morning and some instability still left in the atmosphere. But it will be cooler tomorrow with the passage of that front, roughly in the afternoon, early evening. And we'll have some cooler temperatures. That's good. And we'll have some higher relative humidities. So that's also really good. Heading into Wednesday and the rest of the week, really quick, we are going to build a ridge of high pressure back into the area. That's going to allow us for our temperatures to warm back up from Wednesday through the weekend. Another thing that you notice is that our AM recoveries, those are morning RH recoveries, relative humidity, and our daytime minimum RH is eventually going to go right back down. So we're going to heat up above normal temps. We're going to dry right back out through the end of the week. Once again, saving grace on this fire is that we have lighter winds under high pressure. So that does help fire behavior. That said, once we get through this period, I am thinking toward the end of the period we can get another monsoonal push of moisture. We're going to be looking at that, and that's going to be around that Sunday, Monday time frame. So next 12 hours is really critical weather with these thunderstorms that you see tonight. Very serious for our safety of our firefighters out on that line right now. Then we transition to warmer, drier for the rest of the week as we head into the weekend. With that, I am on weather watch, so I do have to cut out right now. Watching the radar, we're sending out updates to the people on the lines for their safety, and we do that through the end of this event. So I hope I get some sleep tonight. Thanks.
I meant Colin has been great. So we were here last Friday, right? super thick smoke out there. We've been under, at the time we were under an inversion layer, and we had a smoke cap that had kind of settled over this whole region of Idaho. And we talked about how those conditions really prevented the fire from being able to ventilate and get oxygen and really give that opportunity, the potential of that fire to actually reach its potential for spread, for fire growth, and those components that were really moving the fire, which is torching and then spotting. So about midday yesterday, that really switched over, and the convection and that heating on the ground level that allows the winds to kind of push up through the fire picked up. And that's when if anybody was able to notice, there was a column stood up right here, just to the east of town, and that was over on the east side of Bulldog. And we saw some activity further up over by Deadwood Reservoir. So those conditions were present today. Luckily, that little bit of moisture we got this morning kind of moderated that opportunity for those fuels to really dry out, and it also raised the humidities just a little bit. So we didn't get to the potential of the fire today either, which is a great thing. We still have a couple hours in the burn period, and the fire can pick up and move, and we have seen activity, and we know that the fire is out there still burning fairly actively, but those really big pushes for fire spread and fire behavior have been moderated and brought down just a little bit. We're going to be in that situation, like Colin mentioned, for about 12 more hours, and then we're going to move into another phase of that kind of more stable air mass. And that stable air mass is going to bring in those inversions, and it really limits the fire behavior, and what it does is it shortens that burn period. So we're going to be looking at that for a handful of days. That also, unfortunately, brings that inversion and those, kind of that gross air that sticks over the valley a little bit. And if there's any saving grace to that gross air that sticks over the valley, is that the fire also does not have the oxygen it needs to really make those big pushes. So we're going to be able to talk to operations. We'll talk about some of the opportunity that provides. So if we can go to the map real fast, I'll just highlight a couple areas where we have seen some growth and kind of what the outlook is for the next few days until we're able to meet again. So this area between Bulldog and the Denley fire are starting to come together. We expect that these will probably burn together. It may happen today and it may happen tomorrow, but I think we're starting to get down to just a handful of yards and stuff like that really is separating those two, and spotting as those spots pick up and fill in. We may see those fires start to burn together, like I said, within probably the next 24 hours. We're still seeing activity way up north on Deadwood Reservoir. That activity is the burns that fire has been burning through, the old burn scars, the Pioneer and the Bearskin fire from 2016 and 17, there's still a little bit of fuel that was left over. So when that fire finds those fuels, it picks up, it'll burn through, it'll torch, maybe spot a little bit. So the intensity can still happen, but in small scales, and so we're still picking up some acres up there. And along the Pioneer burn scar, we're still picking up a little bit of heat. Some of that area is just because of the potential that we talked about. So all we needed just was that little bit of extra wind and that ventilation, and some of those areas that previously had burned have picked kind of back up, and they're burning again. They're not making strong pushes into Pioneer, luckily, which we haven't expected, and that was, that's one of the nice things about having these large burns on the landscape. It provides those backstops that the fire has burned into. So we don't expect those conditions to change. As we move into later in this week, that air mass will provide that extra stability, and we should see conditions moderate and kind of go back into a pattern that we've had since about, I guess it was about Tuesday of last week, all the way up to today. So we'll kind of start that cycle back over. Thanks, and I'll be around for questions.
Good evening, Trevor Riding, operations for Great Basin Team 3. Just to give you a rundown of what we got going on with fire right now, starting up in November tonight. So if we go up into November around the Deadwood Reservoir, we've had crews working both on the west side of the reservoir here with these little fires up in here, and then also going direct on the fire's edge until it runs into the Bearskin fire scar there. We're using that fire scar as kind of a barrier since the fire's not burning super well in there. So all the crews are focusing their attention on the north end where there hasn't been fire in that vegetation. One thing that has caused with the increase, with the ventilation yesterday, we did get a big push right here, this finger, pushed into the Pioneer bearskin fire scar. It did go over this MAP you see right here, which is Management Action Point. And with these spots right here, those were assessed today. And part of that MAP is protection of the White Hawk Mountain Lookout. So that has been kind of a big thing today. We've assessed that and feel there's a need to put some protection around that. So crews are going to start working on that tomorrow and making sure that we've got a good evaluation going and a good plan to protect that lookout site there. Moving into this division Oscar, which as fire behavior talked about, is pretty much the Pioneer burn scar all the way down to this area here, just to the west of Lowman. So we've kept eyes on that pretty close throughout our duration here. It hasn't moved a lot. There are a few areas where it has continued to kind of burn out into that fire scar, but no big pushes, not a lot of big movement in there. So we've been able to just kind of keep eyes on that with aircraft and our UAS, our unmanned aerial systems that we have. So moving down on the highway here, as you know, for the first part of this team's time here, we had the highway closed. A lot of work was going into the highway and making sure that we could protect these structures along the highway. And then that work slowly moved on up into what we're calling the Romeo Sierra Division, the standskin drainage on that ridge. And I think you've seen plenty of the videos of the aircraft dropping retardant. That was along that ridge. That work has been done for quite a few days now. I think we're looking at like 6 days since we burnt the bottom part of that. And we moved our attention up into the top portion of this one, which is this hand line coming around this piece here and on up into here. We burnt that top piece just a couple of days ago to our hand line to hold that fire right there. And everything there is holding really well through all these weather events and everything. We haven't had a lot of issues. A few fires got across the line, but the crews up there on the hill were able to pick them up, take care of them, and make sure they stayed where they wanted them to. So a lot of good work has been put into that section of the Nelly fire. We're feeling really good about it so far, but we're not taking our attention off of that just yet. Moving up into what we're calling the Tango, which is this portion of line in between the two fires. We don't have any crews necessarily going into the center of this, other than we do have one crew around the lookout here, making sure that we can protect that. One assessment we've had is to wrap that with a structure wrap, a protective wrap, to protect that from catching any embers. As we discussed in the one meeting about embers getting into nooks and crannies of your house, same thing on the lookout tower. So that wrap is supposed to help protect some of that. So we're looking at doing that on the tower to make sure that nothing is at risk there. And then we're keeping the rest of our crews out here, building this line to keep any kind of fire progression from moving to the west or south towards Garden Valley and Crouch. A lot of work and a lot of focus is going to that. That line isn't quite complete, as you can tell by the pink lines on there. But we should have that complete within the next 2 to 3 days, ready for anything that might want to try to move this way. Then moving up into what we're calling Division Delta, which is the middle fork on up into Silver Creek Plunge. This is all looking really good. All the fire that's bumped up to the road is looking really good. We feel good about that. We're keeping eyes on it, but not a lot of active work going into that area. A lot of our work is going into this hand line to push it out away from the road to give us a better advantage of keeping that fire away from the drainage bottom there. We do have structure protection plans in place as far as pumps, hoses, sprinklers, and the sort around all that Silver Creek Plunge area. And then we're also assessing the Boiling Springs and the Silver Creek Lookout there, not only for impacts from our fire, but also from the goat fire possibly coming from the north down to the south. One thing of note, just as we were getting ready for the meeting, we did get a report of an IA up by Boiling Springs. So initial attack, a new fire possibly up there. As of right now, aircraft has flown over the area. They don't see any new start. They think that it's just a column coming off of the Bulldog fire that's in line with some firefighters that are on the goat fire. So if nothing else, that's just a testament to the firefighters looking out for each other, as we can see across the valleys as this air clears. You know, we're keeping an eye out for anything that we might see in the valleys there, and trying to get that response to make sure that we keep anything that does start small. But there is a little bit of concern with the lightning that rolled through already, and so we're just keeping our heads up and making sure that we're picking up anything that does get reported. With that, that's all I have. I'll be out here for questions afterwards. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Bill Honenberg. I'm Deputy Incident Commander as part of the Rocky Mountain team on the Wapiti Fire. And thanks for coming out to spend your holiday, Labor Day holiday weekend evening with us. We're going to talk now about a fire to the east. You've probably been wondering what's going on over there. Just a few basics about this fire. We're at right around 108,000 acres as of yesterday evening. We've got about 1,500 people on the fire. And I'm going to speak primarily to the west side of the fire, really not very far from you folks. We've got what we call a forward operating base, much like an incident command post right across from the Loman fire station set up there. We've got around 400 people working out of that location. So that's generally how we're organized. We split the team up, and we're taking it from two sides, because this fire in a lot of respects is really almost two fires. You know, this being Stanley and the east side. I won't really speak to that. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. A lot more familiar with this portion of the fire over here. So August 22nd, the fire came across into the summer home groups here and burned 7 summer homes. Quite a few of them survived, given a whole lot of really good firefighting. Water pumps deployed, firefighters picking up ember showers. We did lose a few cabins, which certainly was sad, but most of them were protected. I'm probably not supposed to walk around, am I? And I'm supposed to stand where she can keep the camera on me. I'll try and do better. So yeah, that was the initial primary focus for wildland firefighters here. And the whole west side of this fire doesn't have a lot of wildland firefighter activity, given that it's in steep country, country with not a lot of resources at risk. Primary focus has been around the Bull Trout Lake Campground up in here. And then currently we're doing a whole lot of work with these structures here. So the current operations are to protect the 10X and 2 Raven sub communities right here. And that consists primarily of extensive hose lays, water being staged all around those places, and also building both dozer line and some fire hand line above these communities. Should this fire get established, roll down, work its way down to us, we'll be prepared to deal with it. Similar on this side, if you're familiar with this little sourdough lodge store there, between there and the sourdough church, that's this community right here. We're just working pretty hard in the last couple of days to do a similar tactic, deploy water, hose, prepare to defend those structures. We're going to go into a and build line around it. We're going to go into a pretty extensive fuel modification project here. Likely taking place over the next 2 to 3 weeks. The fire may or may not come to us. The likelihood of it coming is fairly slim, but we're going to take this opportunity to take care of that and set that community up for future success. If not being, and it may be really important, should we get some downslope to the west movement. Downslope to the west movement is not common here, but our fire models tell us that can and will happen. It's somewhat of a rare event, somewhere around 1 to 5%, or maybe even less than 1%. Some of the models say, but we want to be prepared. The fire chief there is working really hard with us to get all that taken care of. So, you know, the first 2 weeks of September here, fires tend to burn pretty aggressively. Every day we've had smoke now for, I think, 4 days for most of the day and haven't had much fire movement at all. And so we're moving 1 day closer to what we call a season ending or season slowing event. Meteorologists say that may not come for about 4 weeks. Typically in this country, it comes around 3rd week of September. You people live here and you know that a lot of times around the end of September, we're getting some season slowing events, rain if if not sooner. So that's essentially our strategy and our tactics, is to work to protect these values at risk right here. We're also doing some work around the Warm Springs airstrip. There's some structures here. We've got some dozer line and hand line where we've cut it off and doing some firing operations. So we're using a combination of tactics, some firing operations, a whole lot of focused on protection and preparing to meet the fire should it approach all those homes and those values that I talked about. Let's see. I think that's about it for my report. I was the incident commander for the Springs Fire in 2012, working right here. I may have been in a public meeting with some of you then. Don't know, just about right at 12 years ago. And also I had the Bearskin Fire that he mentioned up there to the north. So this country is pretty familiar to us. It may sound a little odd. We actually really kind of like to come here because the fires are challenging, and we get to help your community. So that's all I've got. I'll hand it off. Witness, I'm going to give their laser back. It's right here because they're worried about me walking off with it, and I could do that.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Dan O'Howdigi, Agency Administrator Trainee. As you can tell from the discussions today, and as you can see, all of this is just moving parts, complexities, left and right. And the communities are one of the biggest complexity parts here, because we take into consideration everything that's said to us, told to us, what's important for us to look at and look forward to protect. And I want to give you, you all need to give yourselves a round of applause, because as we come out and do this, there is no way that we can build a successful plan or strategy without the input from the community. So give yourselves a round of applause for participating, showing up on Labor Day, on a holiday, and showing us that you care, which really shows us that you care for us and what we're doing out here. So please, round of applause for yourselves. So again, thank you for all of that. We're still going hard in the message that we heard and that we're bringing on as we transition to a new team. That is what we intend to take back to them. Let them know what is important to this community and what we need to make sure that they understand as we transition over. I know there was a concern. I know there was folks asking if this team could stay, and they are good. They are very good at what they do. And unfortunately, they can't, but they have done their best to make sure that the next team coming in understands exactly what they will be dealing with. Okay, so I don't have much more than that. I don't want to take all of the IC's. Me and him usually always jump across each other's discussion points. But anyway, I'll be here afterwards for any other additional kind of questions. But again, thank you very much for showing up today.
Thanks, Dano. Brett Waters, IC Great Basin Team 3, and I echo what Bill and Dano said. Thanks for coming out on Labor Day. We really do appreciate it. And what we're going to do is continue to communicate at a very high level with you folks, so that you've got all the answers that you need, and we can make sure that we have a good, smooth transition. We have a new team that is going to be coming in. They're going to show up tomorrow night. We'll end up doing a briefing with those folks, and then they will shadow us on Wednesday, and then we will move on. Then they will take the fire on Thursday. Very good team. We're setting those folks up for success. We're making sure that there's a really good transition. Wednesday night at our next community meeting, we'll introduce those folks to you. So there won't be any surprises. You'll get a chance to see the new faces and the folks that are going to be continuing here for the next couple of weeks. So we want to make sure that transition continues. And then I'll ask that the community has been fantastic with us and been very gracious. And as I've said before, we are a team, all of us, the community, our incident management team, all the firefighters. We are all working together with the Boise National Forest to come up with a good product and get you back to normal. We will make sure that the new team also is introduced to you, and I'm sure that we work with them a lot. They will do a good job. And similar work when Bill's team's going to be rotating out on Wapiti in a couple of days. also the team that's going to be coming in there is also an outstanding team. So you're going to have good support here, continued until that season-ending event. Whereas the very first community meeting that we had, when's this going to go out? When the snow flies, you know? And so we'll see when that is. But we're going to control it as much as we possibly can. Again, if there's any questions, any concerns, please reach out to us. We will be here again on Wednesday. And thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Commander Waters. We will now go to our question and answer period. We're going to make this pretty short, but we're going to stick around afterwards up here by the maps so that you can ask us questions in person. Do we have any questions?
That's Banks One Road, Highway 17.
You asked if the fire has spread south of Highway 17. If you're talking about the Nelly fire, it has, but only just a little tiny bit stayed between the river and the highway in a very short section. Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming, and please come again on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock, and we'll introduce the team. Thank you very much for coming.